Okay, Charlie, here's another one I just thought of, but it's good for another little video, I guess. You'll often encounter something like this. What is 15% of 80? What is blah, blah, blah percent of blah, blah, blah? If you're thinking about it, you have a group of 80 items. And you want to know what 15% of them is. So we can convert to fractions, but the easiest way to do it, the easiest way is to recognize that a percent is a decimal. And a decimal, we can multiply by the big number to find out what it is. So let me say that again. A percent, 25% is equivalent to 0.25. What is 5%? Well, how do we get this one? We simply move the decimal places over 2. What happens when we move the decimal place over 2? We end up with 0.05. So 5% as a decimal, 0.05. 12%, 0.12. Piece of cake. So, for our question, what's 15%? Well, we know that 15% as a decimal is 0.15. What is it as a fraction? That's a good question. Well, we don't often think of these as fractions because we use them as decimals and they're interchangeable and we can use them to multiply against this 80 and find out exactly what that number is. But how would we change that to a fraction? Well, if you remember, when you go past the decimal, we're into tens columns, hundreds, thousandths. So here, the decimal 0.3 is equivalent to 3 out of 10. The decimal of 0.15 is equivalent to 15 out of 100. 15, and it makes sense, right? If you have 100 things and you have 15 out of those 100 things, well then you got 15%. If you have 25 out of those 100 things, you have 25%. 25 over 100 is a quarter. See how it came back in the other video? Either way, 15%, 0.15. And we want to know what's 15% of 80. So we convert this one to a decimal. 15% is equal to 0.15. And then all we have to do is multiply it by 80. Now, multiplication with decimals. Piece of cake, pretend they're not there, put them in afterwards. 80 times 15. We'll put the decimal there so we remember to put it in afterwards. But we're going to do this like any other double multiplication. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 8 is 40. Man, I wish I knew my multiplication tables. I do now. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 0, 0, 2, 1. And then bring the decimal places over. And go from here to 1, 2. And we have 2 there. And we have 12. So again, decimal places up here, remove them when you're done at the end. That's that easy. So 12 is the number that we're looking for. And 12, as we said, is 15% of 80. 12 is 15% of 80. So 12 out of 80. 12 out of 80. And we said that it's going to be equal to 15%. Well, how do we know that? Well, let's reduce this fraction before we divide anything, because that's how we find out, right? We divide the denominator into the numerator. But I can already tell that 4 goes into the top 3 times, and 4 goes into the bottom 20 times. So now all we have to do to prove that 12 out of 80 is the same as 3 out of 20, is the same as 15%, is the same as 0.15, is simply divide it. 20 goes into 3. Let's do it. You know what? Let's make this disappear and divide 20 into 3. Oh my goodness, we can't do that. 20 doesn't go into 3. No, but like we know, if we add a decimal to it up here, we keep adding zeros. 20 goes into 30 one time. It gives you a 20. Subtract it, you get 10. Oh, this is going to be pretty. 0 comes down here, 20 goes into 100 5 times, and look what we found. There's that decimal again, 0.15. We multiply it by 100, that's 15%. we just proved that 12 out of 80 is the same as 3 out of 20, because we reduced it, and we just proved that that's 15%. So why don't you do one? You have a test that's out of 30. What mark do you need to get 65%? I said the test is out of 30. You need to get 65%. So let's do it together. Now, any guesses? Test out of 30, you just get a pass. Pass mark's usually 60%, but we'll go 65 to make it for fun, because the teacher's a little bit harder on you or something. So 65% of 30, and you gotta know, you're doing the test and you got 30 problems, and like, how many of these do I need to get right just to pass? Now you know. 65% is 0.65. We multiply it by 30.65. What do we do here? Forget about it until the end, and then move our decimal place over twice. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 3 is 15, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 3 is 18. Add it all up, 0, 5, 9, 1. Bring the decimal place over 2. 19.5 out of 30 is equal to 0.65, is equal to 65%. So if you need to pass that test out of 30, you need to get at least 19.5 marks to get 65%. There. I hope that was a good one.